could be operated successfully. Our children could go out and return at the end of the day. You can as well go out and return at the end of the day. Yes, we have the security outfits, the security agencies out there, but we must also take it upon ourselves as a responsibility to do our bit in this regard for us to have a safe and conducive environment. We sincerely apologize that the news light could not come at 10 o'clock. My name again is Moses Ben. Joining me this morning to talk on security talks this morning is Captain Awa Udonsiagu, retired. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and good morning, listeners.
Good to have you, sir.
It's a pleasure.
All right, let's start quickly. The African leaders over the weekend, of course, they had about 2 days meeting also across the African continent. We are in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, over the weekend, where they also deliberated on issues of food shortage in the continent and predominantly the issue of insecurity. Sometime last year, coups were recorded in different African states, and then we cannot forget the ones that have been there, but yet no candid solutions have been given to this issue. Do you think that their moves over the weekend would profile solution? Remember that even Niger, they threatened the regional body ECOWAS that they will no longer belong to the body, and yet that body has not said anything. This is giving a signal on what could happen negatively around the African continent.
Yeah, good question. And I want to say that the African Union that metamorphosed from Organization of African Unity, as at the time in the early 60s that African countries started getting independence, there was need to have formed such a union, Organization of African Unity. But over time, the union metamorphosed into African Union. And the union, as it were, I want to say that at a point they were looking at it as the organization that had no teeth to bite anything. And in the peace arena, not much has been achieved from the African Union, as it were. But going by principles, you will find out that under the African Union Commission, the PSC, that's the Peace Security side of the commission, has been set up. But they try to follow the indicators. They try to follow the indicators of what.
Okay, so we sincerely apologize. We had technical issues there. We could not hear you exactly. So would love you to kick off again from where you started from. Our sincere apologies.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
I said that the African Union metamorphosed from Organization of African Unity, Organization of African Union, which was formed as at the time African countries started getting independence from the colonial masters, and they have their headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. As it were, a lot were lined out on the security sector, on education, agric, health, and so on and so forth. But as it were, these organizations have not really achieved much from the 60s till date. And the organization has continued to subsist, now metamorphosed into what we refer to as the African Union. And with the African Union, they've tried to look into the conflicts in Africa. And looking into the conflicts in Africa, they've not been able to achieve much either. Because, as it were, there are basic things you need to look that could cause conflicts in a continent and in regional areas, be it in a country or even the subnational areas of each African country within the continent. And some of these things have not been critically looked into. What are they? The Europeans left us with a lot of border problems. And these border issues still metamorphose up till date. And they left heterogeneous societies in terms of ethnic aggregation coming together to form a country without putting up a format or a pedestal or a platform under which they can really feel as being one in the same country. Exactly this is what we are suffering here in Nigeria. And the resources they did not think away with the resources. They were still interested in the resources of the African nations. Even while they were leaving us, they left us in a manner that they will still have a control of our resources. And even a control of our human resources, to the extent that we have good products, like the French countries that went into what they called colonial assimilation in the Francophone countries, making them believe that they were as good as French people, so that they can be well exploited, their resources exploited, and that those of them who were good enough academically can still find themselves in Paris and do their bid. And that has been sustained for a very long time. Coming direct to your question of whether their meeting could yield any result to African continent, I want to say that that meeting for me is theoretical, and it is not practical. There's nothing they will come out that can easily be practiced, because the fundamentals for African development has not been strictly followed. And what are these fundamentals? You must look at the productive base of African countries. Using Nigeria as an instance, you must move the country from a monolithic economy into a highly diversified economy, because once the economy base cannot carry the super relations level of politics, it becomes extremely difficult for such a country to stand without having internal or international crisis. And the Europeans did not help us when they colonized us and left us so that we'll have problems that will keep bringing them back to support us in resolving these problems, which is never resolved. Coming back to the peace process, you will find out that the African Union might have found themselves like they created a multinational joint task force in Boko Haram region of the Chad region that also involves Nigeria. And the other regional forces that they have tried to put up. But these regional forces have not been able to eradicate terrorism, neither has it been able to eradicate insurgency. And like I've said, when the economic base is not productive, everything is consumption, then it becomes a very, very difficult thing for a country to be well governed. So we must go back to the basics. And what are those basics? The colonial masters should give us the opportunity to rule ourselves from the democratic platform.
But
our leaders must also do the needful. And that needful is to make sure that we have backward integration, we diversify our economy, we open up the productive base in a manner that our youth can be fully and gainfully employed, and we start generating things like what has happened in places like Singapore, Malaysia, even up to China. At independence, the countries we started with are far ahead of us, be it India, be it Brazil, be it China, and so on and so forth. So there is need to reorganize the African continent for future development based on production as a symbol of that development, and that productive base must be highly diversified.
All right, before we move down to the next issue, being a state police at the moment in the country, these are leaders of different countries in Africa. And I believe as leaders, they understand and know the height and then the state of problems that each country faces as a country. Their meeting also, you said that it's usually whenever they converge like that, at the end of the day, nothing is being done. Does it question the readiness of these leaders across the African continent in addressing these issues that you've reeled out this morning?
What I want to say, we have some of the members of the African Union as leaders that I look as accidental leaders.
How do you mean, sir?
What I mean is that they were not prepared to lead. They did not plan for leadership. But because probably they belong to the people I call the bourgeoisie, the very wealthy people, and they were able to use money to manipulate the system and became leaders of their various countries. They don't have any visionary views about what they want to really do for the African continent. There is where when we had Nkrumah, Azikiwe, Awolowo, and some other people, even up to the South African leader, Mandela, they were visionary. They were not just passionate leading their country, they were altruistic in their leadership question. They did not come to accumulate wealth, they came to render assistance to create wealth. How many of such leaders do we have today that want to create wealth so that the poor can also see the light of the day and have a fresh air? Most of these people are people that are pure capitalists and very difficult capitalists, they meet to get more funds to themselves. It's always about our leaders looking after themselves, not caring really much about what is happening. You can see the last set of coups that took place, be it in Niger, Burkina Faso, and you see what the young military officers are doing. How they have told French in Paris that they should give way for them to be able to liberate their own economy and liberate their people and reestablish law and order in such a manner that they can as well feel the impact of what development looks like. The other countries that are far-fetched from development, not because they are not wealthy, not because the ground does not come up with a lot more minerals that can support their export and affect their foreign exchange reserve, but because of personal interest of wanting to remain big at the expense of the commoners, and because they want people that will keep praising them, I think it's high time that African leaders realize that Africans are becoming more educated, highly articulated, and the days are gone where people will keep singing and worshiping somebody that feels he's wealthy. Questions have to be asked. How did you get there? How did you accumulate that wealth? Did you pass through the rigors of the ladder before becoming that big? Or you exploited the masses? A day of reckoning will definitely come. And that day of judgment, everybody will answer his father's name. But it is of my own opinion that African leaders start thinking and tinkering with political structures that will make the African continent become big.
All right.
In a manner that the outer world will look towards us for more positive productions and technology development. We can get to where America is.
It's possible, right?
It's possible. We can even get faster and get to what China has achieved. Put top vehicles on top of the space and they will move.
Interesting. Let us come down to Nigeria. The nation has been raked by waves of abductions, attacks by suspected bandits, and other violent crimes of recent and even at the moment. We know the issue at Plateau State, the issue at somewhere in Ekiti State. All these issues have been going on in the country. In a decisive move to combat the raging wave of abductions, the federal government and state governors last week resolved to come up with modalities that would culminate in the creation of state police to tackle the security crisis confronting their nation, Nigeria. This was part of the agreement reached at an emergency meeting between President Bola Tinubu and 36 state governors. The issue of state policy on board at the moment, sir. What is your take on this move by the leaders of our country at this point in time?
I want to say that when you localize security enforcement, it pays off better. I am in support of state police, but there are a lot more things that needs to be considered before you come up with state policing. One, the Nigerian Federation has to be seen as a federated unit, so that the third tier of government must come into place. That is the local government. So if the governors seek for state police, they should also be supportive of the fact that the local government areas must have the local government police. That's one. Two, the constitution.
Would that not be under the purview of the state government?
Well, if you said the local government becomes autonomous, as the states are really autonomous. Assumed or presumed to be autonomous, if the local government becomes autonomous, it will work well. That's federation. Okay. What we are doing now is quasi-unitary federal system of government. That's the way I define it. If you federate well, local government should have their police. State government should have their police. The federal government should have their police. That's why I say a lot more work has to be done using the geographical space, because you must demarcate the borders in such a manner that Abia police cannot interfere with Rivers police. Rivers police cannot interfere with Imo State police along the borders. So you know where you start from, and you know where you end, and you know where the other state takes over from. It must be well articulated, well regulated, or else we'll start having cross-border issues concerning uniformed people. You must also define plainly where the federal police laws should be and how they can objectively effect issues of arrest within the federal geographical demarcated positions, so that there will not be intercrossing. And even if there must be intercrossing, it must be done in a manner that it is regulated. What am I trying to say? If there is an armed robber being pursued in Abia State and he crosses the Abia border into Akwa Ibom, there should be need for Akwa Ibom police to go continue with the arrest of such a criminal. And if that criminal is picked up in Akwa Ibom, he is quickly returned back to Abia State. It does not call for any Abia people rushing into Akwa Ibom and creating further problem there. If what I'm saying is clear enough, then the constitution must be well looked into. It's not issue of amending the constitution, or it is an issue of rudiments of what will make the state police function well. In addition to what I have said, if you want to create a state police, you must make sure that it should not be abused by the executive. It cannot become anybody's personal police.
In a situation where states and localities are being confronted with the issue of crimes and insecurity,
of course.
How would that have been possible? How would that be possible, sir?
No, the political angle is very strong, particularly when it comes to the executive arm. I say I support state police.
All right.
I am not against state police. But there must be checks and balances, not to turn this police into one strong man's police arm that can go after his political opponents. And if it is well documented and well followed, of course, state police should be supported. In addition to that, local government policing should also be looked into. But beyond that, and before we go into that area, because it will call for a lot of constitutional adjustments here and there, we must critically ask the police to look into police community partnership in the present, in the short run. But at the long run, let's redefine our policing system and decentralize it so that the local areas will own up the responsibility of checkmating crime in their localities, because every crime is local.
All right. This move, is it coming at the right time, or has it been overdue, given the fact that Nigerian societies across the Federation, in one way or the other, has been faced with issues of insecurity and crimes? But at this point, remember, there's been this clamoring for state policing before now. It's just happening. Is it coming at the right time, or it's been overdue?
It's long overdue that we should have had state policing, but I want to keep saying, when we have state policing, we must have local government policing. It must decentralize to the local level. It's long overdue. But it's not over until it's over. Nigeria continues to remain as a country. And everything that we can do to secure this country is worthwhile and must give it that trial. But let's plan well so that the execution can become perfect or near perfect. Let's not rush into it and start crying again. We used to have such police in the 60s. And we know what happened in the West when we talked about the Wild Wild West. These institutions were mismanaged. They became institutions at the hand of big-time chief executives of the political process that went after their opponents. But before then, they did a good job. So if it is well articulated, the constitution is well adjusted, and the chief executives of the states cannot easily exploit them for their own personal gain, particularly during political campaign periods. It's a nice thing, and it will help to curtail crime, because these are people that know their geographical space.
All right, another...
They understand the language.
Okay.
But you must limit their operational jurisdiction within the confinement, the geographical space allocated to such a state.
All right. Another issue here is that in most states, we've been recording the state's local security outfits. Like in the southwest, you have the Almotekun. In other states, they have this local security outfits too, though they've not been armed properly to carry out their activities. This is another issue. These men have been working, trying to establish state policing. Won't it affect the operational activities of this local security outfit operating at different parts of the country at the moment, sir?
These local outfits, like you rightly said, that are operating are not armed. Their training is highly limited. Their interpersonal relationship with the wider society is very, very low and poor. But if given the mandate based on the Nigerian Constitution to operate, they will be as good as the Nigerian security agencies. And their level of operation will be such that they will be armed, they will use their weapons very well, and they will also be compensated by way of paying them their salaries, allowances, and whatever, as is applicable to the Nigerian state. And we will see a lot more positive response in the management of crime. I am of the view that we give it a trial, but let it be well planned. We should not rush into it. The planning stage must be critical to ensure that Nigeria does not run into a bigger problem of police harassment, molestation, extortion, and all sorts of things. And you cannot just be in your house because you did not greet one big man, the person will send police to come and pick you up. These are the considerations, and they should not be involved in the political process. As much as possible, even now in the present day Nigeria, we should limit and reduce the involvement of the security agencies in our campaign processes and the election processes. They might not have really helped us much.
Right. This program is quite interactive, Security Talks, and today we are looking at the creation of state policing as it was established by the president and the 36 state governors as a result of the meeting they had last week. How feasible is this particular move? There are other issues around it, sir. Talking about those at the moment who are serving in different capacity, even within the Nigerian police force. Should this happen, what would happen to those persons who are not from a particular area or a particular society, but they are serving in a different locality altogether? We'll find out after this break. Remember that this is Security Talks. Please stay tuned. When we return, we'll open the phone lines as well for you to contribute on this issue this morning.
Celebrating your family and friends has become cheap like a cup of tea, easy as ABC, and rapid like it should be. You can send birthday greetings and goodwill messages on Rapid FM for just 1,000 naira. Other events like weddings, child dedication, housewarmings, religious and government functions go for even less, 500 naira. Now, your loved ones have no excuse not to celebrate you rapidly on your day because all they have to do is visit our website at www.rapidfm965.com/request or call 07049 220965. Are you missing out on interviews, music, entertainment, thought-provoking discussions, and more? Don't sweat it, man. We've got you covered. No matter where you are, be part of the action 24/7, online and live with Rapid 96.5 FM at Rapid 965 FM on YouTube and Facebook. Catch the pulse of Abia State with Rapid 96.5 FM Umuahia, the sound of your city.
Peace is actually a process, and don't forget that safety and security don't just happen. They are achieved as a result of individual and collective agreement, proactiveness, collaboration, and public investment. It could further be achieved through self-awareness of your desired contribution to a safe and conducive society. Our children and fellow compatriots deserve a life free of violence, threats, fear, and destruction. Join Rapid 96.5 FM on Security Talks every Monday from 10 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. for security analysis of major development, security reports and awareness, as well as guides for the safety of our society. Security Talks, promoting a conducive and peaceful environment for development.
You're welcome back to Security Talks on Rapid 96.5 FM. This morning we are looking at the creation of state police as a result of the meeting that was held last week. Of course, the president was there, and then the 36 states governors as well were all there. This move, do you see it combating or handling the issue of insecurity and crimes in our country? A lot has been happening, talking about abduction, kidnapping, killings. People are being taken away, yet at the end of the day, you don't comb these people out. So we want to find out from you. 091600965, 09160333965. Over to you. We still have in the studio Captain Awa Udonsi Agu, retired. Sir, at the moment in the Nigerian police force, we have, for example, a police personnel who is from Akwa Ibom State serving down here in Abia State. Of course, one who is from Abia State serving somewhere in Kaduna State. Should this come to fruition, won't it affect this arrangement, or how would this be handled as an expert in this field?
Well, I want to say that when you create an institution and the existing institution, you give people that liberty and freedom to choose, make a choice of where they want to belong to. So if somebody from Lagos State wants to remain with the federal police,
let's not forget that this state policing will have to do more of indigenous or people who are from that locality.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Those that want to belong to their local police and leave the federal police should be allowed to do so. It should not affect their period of service. I think in the civil service structure, they have what they call civil service mergers, where people from the state service can move over to the federal service in those days without losing any ranking. It's rationalization. That's why I said the planning must be good enough to support Nigeria's tomorrow. If you don't plan well, it will dislocate the security structures in existence and create further problem. And coming out of it will become more complex. But if we plan it well and we execute it well, it will help to reduce crime to a very, very minimal level. Because every crime is local. And the people from Imo State or Abia State returning back to join the policing in Abia State with new recruitment of indigenes of Abia State too, we will help fish out criminals from every forest, from every cranny and nooks of Abia State. Nobody will be so free to perform. And it will also help indicate people that have come into Abia State without good clearance. You see, freedom of movement is necessary, but we run a federation the way it's done in America and some other developed countries. Border crossing, while you are allowed to cross border at will, you are still being checked. Because you have documents that identifies you where you belong, in addition to the national documents you have. So there must be purposes of movement. The screening will be done. Everywhere is so computerized today. So while nobody is talking to you, the system is also saying what is happening with you. And your intentions and your intentments in whatever form you want to look at it. That's why I say we need to plan it in a manner that it will not be that we rushed into it and we want to rush out of it. Look at today's political structure of Nigeria with the presidential system we are running. People are now saying that it's very expensive. It is not making us get richer as a country, even per individual income. That if we go back to the parliamentary system, it might give us a leeway for better development. That's why I say, when you want to do something that is systematic in its nature, you must carry the entire system holistically, examine everything, so that what you have on board is not something you will regret tomorrow. I'm still saying that state security will help a lot. It will localize our security. The governors will be in a better pedestal to manage it well, but they should realize it's open to every indigene of that state and should not be abused.
All right, you said that security is local. We have leaders at the local level that the people easily interact with them. They could, for sure, detect what happens within their locality. Talking about the traditional rulers, what's their role in this case in ensuring that this becomes something that would keep running and achieve its objective?
Are you talking about the state security?
Yes.
Their role remains the same. It might not change much. Their role is to get information to whichever security organization or institution that is available to them, to the extent that there is that mindset of protection. If you don't protect them, they will not give you any information. They are not trained security experts. They are just traditional rulers who happen to understand their environment, understand the people that live with them, and will get information when a new face surfaces. And if that new face is not conducive for that environment, it is their duty to expose that new face. Or if there is any of their own children that has derailed and deviated from normal norms of the society, it is their duty to also report. And that's why I said that even when you localize it, community policing should still be emphasized, where the police lives with the people, interacts with the people, exchange views with the people, hold meetings on weekly or bi-weekly basis with the people. See what the people need. See what could make their children deviate, and report the same back to the headquarters. And the headquarters starts doing a lot more. There's a lot more police can do, just not arresting people. Because if you plan well, you will not have anybody to arrest.
Will that not call for, let's say, a high level of involvement of the people in this? How many persons would be interested in serving this area? Talking about, even while we have, while we'll be having state policing, there should be community policing. It calls for manpower execution, yes, sir.
No, when you talk about community policing, it's just the police you have recruited, you have trained, interacting well with the civilians, living with them. You do not really form a separate entity or a gap between the police and the people. It's not a question of we and them. It's a question of all of us. John is a police officer. He lives in my street. We interact well. If we have any issue, we'll meet him. Peter, the same thing. They know us, we know them. And we have been discussing well. Nobody is selling out the other. So if we get to understand the essence of community policing in its right perspective, we will hardly have this level of crime. But you cannot stop criminality, like I have always said, if the productive base is not strong. And when the productive base becomes strong, there are other things that aligns with it. Employment facilities will be made open. People will be better engaged. Opportunities for education becomes better, freer, and payment structure easier. Because people are carefully doing one thing or the other. And the economy is no longer monolithic. So you have people doing what we are doing as a journalist. You have people researching. You have people putting these machines we have here together to be able for Nigeria to start producing hardware. So a lot, when you engage good hands, crime will drop. We have a lot of hands that are not doing anything worthwhile. They are not even thinking well. So they have deviated into drug abuse. And we know the problem that goes with drug addiction. So what I'm saying is that while we are thinking of creating state police or diversifying the police force in whatever name we want to give it, the economy must be uppermost. In our mind, the social engineering process must be well articulated.
So it is not just it doesn't lie at just creating state police.
No. The one we have not helped much, because the underlying factors that must help the system to work and create that level of synergy in terms of function of everybody getting involved, doing something worthwhile. Your time is well occupied. By the time you come out of it, you want to sleep. You wake up, you are engaged again. You don't have time for crime. You might not have time for deviation. Education will become good, not the type of education you are in class, rain is beating you because the roof is not there or flood is overtaking the place. These are signs of a country that has not planned well, a country that is so corrupt, a country that has a lot under the ground They believe it's only one product that can sustain them, petroleum or crude oil. It's not good planning. We need to reshape our planning and let it be holistic. All the minerals should be brought to the fore. Agriculture should be balanced, mechanized. We need to improve our health sector. And ensure our doctors don't go on the jackpot thing I'm hearing. People should remain here and do the right thing. In fact, in China, almost everybody is involved doing one thing or the other. So you cannot say a particular service is superior to the other one. You choose the one where you want to belong and be comfortable belonging there and becoming useful to the society. Because when you have these interfaces in terms of economic generation of goods, you have a functional state, not a failed one. And your reserve will be high because you will become more marketable. And you will be more respected. Anybody that sees you want to ask, are you an engineer, are you a pilot, are you this or that? Who produced this, who manufactured this wristwatch is made in Nigeria. What of shoe? Made in Nigeria.
And this will contribute in some of the issue of...
The microphone I'm using, made in Nigeria. Space engineering available. A lot more things. Underwater currents. Whether is that we have a lot of water around Nigeria. The Atlantic is with us. What have we done with it? There are a lot more things that can be exploited to make Nigeria come out better.
And then it will handle the issue of insecurity.
It will handle the issue of insecurity. Get people involved in something worthwhile. It's not by carrying weapon. Weapon is just one aspect of it. A time was where people were not carrying weapon to pick up criminals. And there was hardly any crime being committed the way it is until after the Civil War. If you go back into history, the Oyenusis. That was manifestation of the war, where weapons were lost and kept loose. And values started changing. And what we have is still compounded by the fact of what happened in Libya. And in the Sahel, where there have been so much problem, they call it, whether it's in Sudan and South Sudan. Even in Ethiopia, a lot more places have been under fire. And it's created a lot of problem. But these are issues that when we are occupied, our territorial integrity is sustained. And we do not just, within the ECOWAS freedom of movement or whatever, does not mean that it must be totally free.
All right, we've used our time already. But before we let you go this morning, we've said that security is something that is quite intentional. And then as citizens also, we have one or two roles to play.
Of course.
Leave us with security tips for this week while we leave the studio.
Well, I want to say that getting involved in crime is not the right way to go. No matter how difficult things are, we should be doing things worthwhile. Get back to the farm and make sure our children remain in school and ensure that the government will do the best they can do. All hands must be on deck for us to eradicate crime, if possible, from the society or reduce it to the barest minimum. But be that as it may, I advise Abians that wherever you are going, wherever you are, look at your back and know who is following you. And if the right person is not with you, make a phone call across to the security agencies so that that person should be removed from your life.
All right, look at your back and know who is following you. It's been a wonderful time with you, Captain Awa Udonsi Agu, retired on Security Talks. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure.
All right, Security Talks runs every Monday on Rapid 96.5 FM Umahia from 10 o'clock to 10:45 a.m. We'll do this again next week, Monday. Until then, contribute your best. Do your best. Ensure that you look at your back to know who is coming behind you. My name is Moses Ben. Good morning.
Is actually a process.